In this unit, we're going to switch gears and we're going to start talking about functions. And one of the components of functions is this idea of graphing. And so as we looked in our definitions, the definition of an ordered pair is a location or an address to a point on the graph, where we always identify our input value first and then our output value. So this would be 5 and then 2. It would go to -3 and then up to 7. -6 and then down to -2 and over to 2 and then down to -5. This is known as the first quadrant. Second quadrant would go in counterclockwise order, third quadrant and the fourth quadrant. And then the other thing, all the values or all the points in the first quadrant are positive values. These in the second quadrant are negative positive values. In the third quadrant, we have negative values. And then finally, we have in the fourth quadrant, positive negative values. And then we have two very special points that are here. And each one of these points, this point is 9, 0. And because it lies on the horizontal axis, we're going to call it the horizontal intercept point. And it's called this because it is the point that touches the horizontal axis. I apologize for that. My computer or the page kept jumping back. But this is the horizontal intercept point, and that's the point that touches the horizontal axis. It's always going to have an ordered pair of some value, comma 0, because we're going to move along the horizontal axis, but it has no up and down movement, so that's a 0. Here, this point is what we're going to call the vertical intercept point, and this point is, we have no horizontal value, so that's 0. It's not moving anywhere, but we go up to 3. So this point is 0, 3. And again, it is called the vertical intercept point. And this is because this point crosses or touches the vertical axis, the vertical intercept point, which is the point that touches the vertical axis. And keep in mind, we are not using x and y in any case. We are whatever this axis variable represents. So when we were solving inequalities, sometimes this was a, sometimes this was w. So the x and y ideas is only going to be saved for our calculators and for some very unique situations. So, and then here, so that's why we call it the vertical axis and the horizontal axis. In this case, there is no horizontal movement, and there's only going to be vertical movement, so it's 0 and something. So then we also, when you saw with our graphing calculator picture above the window key in that definition, we noticed that the window is just your paper or your calculator's way of graph paper. So those values come from whatever our graph paper would be. So this value right here would be our x minimum. Again, our calculator only understanding x and y. This value right here is our x max. This would be our y minimum and our y maximum. And then you have the other two parts, which are the scales. So this part right in between here, whatever we're counting by in terms of these tick marks, this would be the y scale. And then between here and here, that would be the x scale. And then that's how you would set up your calculator, by hitting the window key and then inserting those 6 values depending on what the graph paper, what you would want the graph paper to be if you were graphing by hand.